White supremacy doesn't just damage its victims, it creates a profound psychological pathology in those who perpetuate it. And that pathology manifests most chillingly in the consciousness of children, young people, indoctrinated into a system of hate that contradicts itself at every turn. This is how a culture of hate manufactures monsters. During Jim Crow, white supremacists didn't just lynch black people, they preserved the bodies. They used the skin of black folks to make shoes. They placed black men's genitals in formaldehyde and displayed them in storefront windows. Shopkeepers selling superiority like merchandise. They cut open the abdomens of pregnant black women, letting babies fall to the ground and stomping them to death. These weren't isolated acts. They were rituals of dehumanization. Systematic, deliberate, public. These acts required a complete severing of human empathy. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, psychiatrist and author of the ISIS Papers, identifies the root psychology. Any neurotic drive for superiority is founded upon a deep and pervading sense of inadequacy and inferiority. This is not strength. This is pathology. White supremacy is a defense mechanism rooted in fear and psychological injury. The system teaches its adherents that they are superior while simultaneously revealing through their desperate need to dominate and control that they experience profound inadequacy. That contradiction is embedded in the consciousness of every child raised within it. White children are taught to hate other groups based on skin color, religion, and culture. They are indoctrinated into believing their culture is the only valid one, the only worthy one. Yet simultaneously, they consume black culture voraciously. They listen to black music. They dance to black rhythms. They eat black food. They wear black fashion. They build wealth networks off black creativity whilst being taught to despise black people. This is the functional contradiction. They love what black people create whilst being programmed to hate black people themselves. That cognitive dissonance doesn't resolve. It festers. It deforms their consciousness. Dr. Amos Wilson in Blueprint for Black Power writes, false consciousness, self-alienation, self-hatred are conjoining states of mind which motivate oppressed blacks to engage in continuing self-defeating, self-destructive assault against their own interests and against themselves. But this framework applies equally to those perpetuating the white system. White children raised in supremacy experience a different but equally damaging false consciousness, one that teaches them they are superior whilst requiring them to commit acts that reveal their inferiority. They must justify cruelty. They must rationalize dehumanization. They must live in perpetual cognitive dissonance. That deforms the developing mind. In September 2023, on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, a 14-year-old white boy attempted to drown a 15-year-old black boy at Gooseneck Pond. He called him racial slurs. He pulled him under the water multiple times. A third juvenile watched and mocked the drowning victim, calling him George Floyd, evoking the name of a murdered black man as a joke, whilst another child fought for breath. This is not an anomaly. This is what white supremacist consciousness manufactures in children. 18-year-old Nolan Wells, a black teenager, went to Horn Island with a group of white friends on July 4th, 2026. He was the only person of color in that group. His body was later found on the island. His case joins a troubling invisible pattern. Black children in white communities, the only black face in the classroom, the only black person in the friend group, goes missing. They are killed by their classmates. Their deaths receive minimal media attention, whilst missing white children dominate national coverage. The data is clear. black children are missing and murdered at higher rates than white children, yet their cases remain invisible. The same dehumanization that filled formaldehyde jars during Jim Crow now fills the silence around Nolan Wells. The removal of critical race theory from school was not accidental. It was strategic. Critical race theory does what white supremacy fears most. It teaches young people to examine history honestly. It empowers teachers to facilitate reflection. It allows white children to interrogate their own consciousness, to see the contradictions embedded in the system that they've inherited, to disassociate themselves from the racism perpetuated by their parents and their culture. Without that critical framework, white children inherit racism as inevitably as they inherit their parents' surnames. The consciousness remains unexamined. The hate continues unchecked. This is the deepest pathology. Maintaining white supremacy requires constant psychological reinforcement. Every act of violence demands retroactive justification. The system built by the oppressor becomes their own prison, a tyranny of the mind. White children raised in this system cannot brutalize another group without brutalizing their own capacity for compassion, truth, and genuine human connection. They become, in essence, monsters, not because they are inherently monstrous, but because they have been systematically taught to sever their humanity in service to a lie. The same dehumanization that filled formaldehyde jars during Jim Crow now fills the consciousness of a 14-year-old holding a black child underwater. The same inverted morality that justified lynching now justifies the erasure of black bodies from our collective memory. The same cultural contradiction consuming black culture whilst hating black people perpetuates itself in a new generation. Until we name this pattern, until we see the psychological pathology embedded in white supremacy, from Jim Crow to Cape Cod to Horn Island to the present, we cannot heal it. We cannot stop it. And white children will continue to inherit a consciousness designed to make them perpetrators of their own psychological destruction.